think at the end of the day, as researchers, we're trying to take the wheat from the chaff.
There's one golden rule for researchers in this business. Thou shalt not hoax. Not ever.
Sorry, I get excited sometimes. I'm sorry.
I know. Every ounce of misinformation or bad evidence, it takes 15 pounds worth of effort to try to make up for it. 15 pounds of effort for every ounce of bullshit that's out there. And just like that, we're live and in color from multiple points on the BC map. Beautiful British Columbia, that is. I'm Gerry Matthews, and
I'm Bill Reed.
Leon Thompson.
Thomas Steenberg.
And we're the Book Boss crew. So, what are we going to talk about today, gentlemen?
I assume the Sasquatch mystery.
Oh.
Well, maybe before we start, Thomas, why don't you do a little intro on? I think you have another presentation coming up in a week or so with the Harrison Museum.
The Friday, I think it says 21st. Harrison Hot Springs begins its annual Sasquatch Days celebration, and it's actually, even though they've been letting people in for a month now, it's the official opening of the new Sasquatch Information Center and Museum. So myself and John Kirk III, president of the British Columbia Scientific Cryptozoological Club, I dare anyone to say that 5 times fast, will be there to answer questions and autograph books, et cetera, et cetera.
Does John have books?
Oh, yeah. Mostly on lake monsters and sea serpents.
Well, of course, that's his wheelhouse, to use another nautical term. Yeah. But no, that's cool. I mean, because I know for many years, you and Bill Miller used to make the rounds during Sasquatch Day. And you have your stand set up and everything. And
oh, yeah. For the longest time, Bill Miller and I, we used to do table displays down there right on the beach. on the weekends and all during Sasquatch days. And we used to be in the Canada Day parade there every year too. Yeah, with this carrier promoting Miller's tourism business.
Yeah, yeah. And the heart went out of that town when they stopped Sasquatch days.
Well, kind of. Sasquatch days went on all
did it just
during 1930s, and it was stopped after the Second World War, and it never started up again until the early 90s when Steve Harvey started it up again, and the town council started it up again. We had a serious symposium going on there in the chateau or the main hotel there in the Coronet Room. And that went on for like 4 or 5 years straight. And well, they just got so much response, the town decided to keep Sasquatch Days going. But it got back to its more of its First Nation, local First Nations, canoe races and displays and stuff like that.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. I mean, but you and Bill made your mark on that town, though. I mean, you got... you're instrumental in getting that museum up and running.
Oh,
after
absolutely.
Several incarnations, it finally made it to what it is today. And if you care to go to the hotel, the Harrison Hotel, there's a life-size replica of Sasquatch in the lobby, isn't it?
No, not in the hotel. They never did build that Sasquatch replica that Bill had in mind, because as usual, everyone was always enthusiastic as long as somebody else paid.
Somebody else is paying for it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that was, but all the stats. See, Harrison went through another stage of we're getting too sophisticated to be associated with this Sasquatch nonsense. So we're going to try and distance ourselves. So the statues start to disappear, the signs start to disappear, and we had a big, mainly because of Mr. Reese, who was the new director of the tourism office. He invited Bill and I to a town meeting, and they're saying, "How can we increase tourism?" And it was uncanny. There's let's have a wine and cheese tasting. So like, let's do this. Oh, let's promote the Santa. Bill and I were, you already got it. The town's association with the Sasquatch mystery. That's why a lot of people are coming. And you could just see them in the back of the room going, oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah. They got on. And that's the reason why the signs came back and the statues came back. And once again, they're showing. But what really did it is when Kokanee Beer tried to claim that Creston was the heart of BC Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah.
And Harrison Hot Springs didn't like that. So.
Oh, yeah. I've driven through Creston, and you see the signs are up on every pole and the crosswalks, and every establishment has something in their window to do with,
Yeah, and at the time they were featuring Renee in the Kokanee Beer commercials, and so it was kind of like a feud between us and Harrison and Renee at Creston and BC. What's the name of that town again? Creston? Yeah, well, for the Kokanee stuff, who was the real gateway to Sasquatch country? And I said, well, if you're coming from the south or west, Harris, if you're coming from Alberta,
most definitely.
Yeah,
I think Creston won that battle. I really do.
They did, but then they dropped. Then they dropped the whole Renee thing, and they started going with the girls with the painted on ski suits and the silly forest ranger thing, and that sort of died out.
Hey, that wasn't silly. I like the forest ranger thing.
Yeah. That wasn't bad.
With the girls.
Yeah.
The girls.
Yeah. But so you're going to be there for Sasquatch Days, Thomas, both days?
Well, no, I'm going to be there on the 21st. They haven't asked me to go any more than that, but if they do, if they want me to, I'm more than willing. I don't mind helping out at all. Yeah.
Well, that's good, because aside from the Sasquatch thing, the only other thing they had going for them was the Sandcastle, which was sponsored by John Green, the Sandcastle competition. And man, that was cool. That was really cool. those
He also paid
competitions.
for most of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you just said, who's going to
Yeah.
pay for it?
Yeah.
Oh, you're paying for it, John. Great idea. Let's get on that.
Yeah. And what really helped in 2016, we had that popular Canadian show. I'm not even sure it's still going, called Still Standing. They did a sort of feature on Harrison Hot Springs and the Sasquatch
Yep.
connection.
He was going last year. He was still going last year. I don't know if he's back again this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty good. As a matter of fact, one of the producers got in touch with me about that. To suggest something near Vancouver, that had its own identity ongoing here. And I said, yeah, Harrison Hot Spring. I said, if you want to really learn about that and the Sasquatch net, here's Thomas's phone number. Get in touch with him. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you.
Mm.
And I don't know if she did contact you, did she not?
No.
Oh, okay. And I shouldn't have said anything then. Now your feelings are hurt.
Nope, no, they're not. They know where I am. If they want to contact me, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you hardly hide your light under a bushel, as the good book says. Yeah.
But he took his phone number off of his door sign. So now people don't know how to get a hold of him when they see his little car go by.
Why did you do that?
Well, I just got smaller signs for the smaller truck. I still got the bigger signs for the bigger truck. So,
but still, he's got the little signs on there with no phone number.
Gee, it's like Santa. You just say Sasquatch and put it in the mailbox, huh? And it ends up in Thomas's mail slot. Yeah,
it's funny.
Anyway, you were saying something earlier there, Bill, about a very interesting topic. And we'll just continue on with that for a while. And that is artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it was actually, I was watching another podcast and they were talking about AI, and some of the stuff that they brought up, and which I totally agree with, is how the proliferation of AI.
Bill, 1 second there. I just wanted to welcome Raulu to the chat. And we only got started a few minutes ago, so you're not missing too much. I'll continue, Bill, please.
And with the proliferation of AI, how it's even going to make it harder on researchers to look at information that's being sent to them or shared on the internet. And they were talking about some of the these content creators that are out there now that are doing, say 2 shows a week. On each show that they're doing 4 or 5 witness encounters. That means that at the end of a year they're talking about 200, 250 encounters. Some of these other content creators are putting them out daily, and they're doing anywhere from 2 to 4 encounters daily, which now means that you're looking at roughly 300 to 400 supposed encounters a year that they're talking about. So just over a 3 or 4 year period, you could have somebody, trying to talk about anywhere from 600 to 1,500 encounters, which really is not statistically plausible that all of those are real encounters, let alone that people have sent in their encounters. So we know that at least a portion of them are going to be hoaxes right from the get-go. And then when you start talking about AI generated pictures, I mean, right now, a lot of them are still are crude, but, they are getting more and more advanced, more and more difficult to look at. So we may have, like during the 1970s, you had a rash of, hoaxes going on with people in fake suits, like the Lake Erock mission hoax. But now it's going to be AI. So this is going to make what we do, any researcher that has any value, it's going to make what we do harder and maybe damn near impossible.
Well, I said a year ago when I did an article on the on the YouTube channel about AI, I predicted that 2025, this time next year, next summer, it'll come to the point where you will not be able to believe anything you read or anything you see on the internet. Yeah, I mean, it'll be that sophisticated by then. And what what it is that people say, well, they got programs out now that can tell you that this picture's a fake, that video's a fake, what you just read, downloaded is a fake. And yes, they do, but they're infantile compared to the AI machines themselves. It will take them a long time, according to the experts. And these experts are the people who create AI in various companies. And they say for it to make a program that has a curve to be able to keep up with AI, it's so cost prohibitive that no single AI company can produce it themselves. It would have to be a conglomerate or something of AI companies going in together to build such a thing, because the cost would be just astronomical to find a machine that will, do an in-depth analysis of these things you're looking at. So don't count on that to save you.
Well,
And
I heard on Steve Cole's program, Sasquatch Detective, he was very happy to hear that it was going to be anything that used AI. There was going to be like a little mark on the screen telling you this is AI.
Yeah, but that is easy to get rid of as well, because again, that's if it's a legitimate company
yeah,
doing legitimate work. There's nothing stopping a hacker from making their own version of AI and getting rid of that watermark.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like Gerry is saying, I mean, it's you're chasing the tail, right? It's going on there. And then the other problem with AI, you could go, if you had an AI program, you could say to it that you wanted 50 different Bigfoot stories, that you wanted them to be different and in different locations. It'll create them. Now all of a sudden you've got, how many shows worth of content. So,
mm-hmm.
And then the other thing you look at is, what is the ratio of boots on the ground, legitimate researchers, or even real researchers that maybe not boots on the ground, but are going through legitimate sources. What's the ratio of those compared to content creators that don't give a damn if it's true or false? All they're looking for is the monetization views and how much views that they can create. And I bet you in YouTube, you're looking at hundreds to one of creators versus real researchers.
Well, I mean, look at the former artist known.
Am I gonna be able to talk today, or not? Not today. You don't want to shut me out, or what?
Hey, the last time we had you on, you just sat there like a wooden Indian, man.
Well, I tried to get a word in the middle there when Thomas pointed it out, but the other problem is I was listening to some of the reliable channels that are out there. There's over 12 million podcasts now.
Wow.
10 million. 10 million. And they're all opinionated. Most of them. Not all of them. It's very hard. And I've noticed in the last, like before, like you were saying, Bill, it was like 100 to 1 when you're trying to find scientific researchers just on any type of topic compared to the voice of the podcaster million group. Now I'm finding it's about 1,000 to 1. And you're right. The information we're getting, you can't. I mean, we've had years of a hard enough time just validating the data that we've been getting, and now with AI, like it could be a 15-year-old kid. One of the guys was talking about, yeah, you're going to have a 15-year-old kid that comes up with, I want you to do up 500 papers on why the world is actually flat. And that's going to take the AI about, I think he said about 3.5 minutes to come up 500 research papers. He wants the citing. He wants where it's cited from, the professionals added into it. And that just is dispensed by somebody just saying something online. And so the idea of being able to look at anything in the future, I mean, especially with AI coming up, I mean, if when I look at documentation for validating, like for instance, art. Well, what's the first thing you do when you look at art? Well, you look at the signature. Well, they have the AI now is not just this AI idea; it's this capacity of a mechanism behind the AI, so it can actually write with the correct pressure pointing on the signatures. So if you write any kind of document, any document can be copied. Majority of us will not be able to tell whether or not something is real or not that way. And so this, and the other thing is that's happened, of course, with the culture, which we've all noticed, is my opinion about it makes it real to me. It doesn't make it factual. And in that little opening that you had of us in there, one of the quotes you should have from me is, "Do you want to know what you're looking at, or don't you want to know what you're looking
I
at?"
know, that's excellent. That's excellent.
You know, and the problem with it is today we don't really want to know what we're looking at. We want to believe what we're looking at is what we think it is. Now, the problem psychologically about that stance or that positioning is the reason why it's important to know what you're looking at is because it helps you stay stable in reality. It keeps your feet on the ground. You don't have to second guess it. It's been multiple already investigated. They have the data, the origins of why ideas formed where they are, where we can go right back into like any kind of science you want to look at. We can go right back to the beginning of who came up with the first part, the second part, the third building block, the fourth Lego set, the fifth Lego set. So it has a chain of custody, or I can't remember what the term is right now. And now, like when I'm watching what's online, I mean, I really have a hard time being online, just for my resources, because I'm still recovering from dropping dead for the 9th time. But if you don't have something solid, again, what is solid? Well, something solid is if you get it on film, if they're in the area, is there enough trace evidence left in the area for us to investigate what we're actually supposed to be looking for? And I mean, Thomas has been in this forever, and he's been watching this kind of cycle happen, or this bubble of, we're actually curious about really what's going on and now what's the word I'm looking for? Morphs itself into this cultural identity. Cultural identity, as soon as it becomes a culture in a system, the system is more important. What's more important to the system is the belief of the topic instead of the facts of the topic. And this can be anywhere from, like, if you're looking at studying religion or anything, people will hold dearly to mom's apple pie, like, don't talk about my mom that way, don't. But what if your mom's a brutal person and you're still in this denial kind of stage? And I don't know quite how we're going to negotiate in the future. I mean, one of the reasons I don't have much reserve, so I can only focus on what is real to keep me in reality based, a sense of solidness about myself. And I've been out here for 7 years now. And I have been asking before, and now it's to the point where I can't see any new evidence that's come out in 7 years. Not a single video, not a single picture, not a single anything. Good catch on the footprints, by the way. Thomas, I'm not sure if that was you that found that out, the fake footprints that were going around with Harrison. And, but I mean, really, you guys, 5 to 7, not you guys specifically, but anyone listening, and like for 7 years, I've been doing this. I pretty well know most people that are in the community, the big people, or the big names kind of thing. And I don't see them coming up with anything new. I see the regurgitation of what to do and all this kind of stuff. But what is it they're needing? Like when I was quiet last time, when Wizard Andre, you're gonna help me with my brain, you guys. Wizard, how do you say that? Yeah,
Jonathan.
Great. Well, what I was thinking, one of the things I was saying or wanting to ask him was, look, you got 4 of us who are in the bush, experienced in the bush. Tom and I'm experienced in a different way than you guys are, and you guys are all different than I am. So you got qualities I don't have. You got 4 of us sitting in front of you. What is it you need? What would you want to ask us? Because when you're listening to a lot of people, when you have podcasts, you're hearing the same stuff over and over again. It's the story. Man, there's so many people with the story. How many people with UFO stories want to jump on the UFO online scene to tell us their stories? And I don't know at what point a culture gets to where I think at a frustration is where it starts from, but I'm not sure how it evolves after that. Well, I do have a slight idea, but after this whole stuff we're finding online in our culture, which is just crazy kind of thinking, in regards to woke and left or right, depending on what tradition you're from and if you're a far left or a far righter, they're both crazy in my mind. It's like pseudoscience on both sides coming up with statements that sound really good, but it tickles that side of me that I'm biased about instead of wanting the fact. Now, I'll try to shut up here. Not that I can't stop talking, but people like using words that we've talked about numerous times, which is cognitive dissonance and cognitive dissidence, Dunning-Kruger effect, cost fallacies, all these mind games the brain can do. And because they have heard us talk about, and the human condition has a problem with this, if you hear it talked about, therefore you know what it actually is. And so the problem is, I've found the last couple of weeks, I had a few people, or I'll say one specific person, is coming up saying, well, how do you know you don't have cognitive biasness? Because if you know what cognitive biasness, if you're cognitive biasness or have definitions of these mind games, you know what they look like. So then the reason why you want to know what they look like is so that you can check in with yourself to make sure you're not being deceiving yourself, because you want something to be true, so true that you get on the crazy train with it. And again, it's going to take you down a way that's going to waste your time and waste your energy and waste your information, instead of asking. It'd be nice to have somebody online would say, let's just get to the basics. What do you think the first thing we would need to do to just find one? What would we look for just to find one? I'm a big guy on snow tracks. You guys know that. Is because if you find snow tracks, you can find something that's there for a while and you can track it for a while. Not just dirt stuff or anything like that. It's just, it's something that's a lot more deeper than that. And then what's the next goal? How would you break down that area? How would you break it down so you can investigate it deeper? But we're not even at, like Thomas, you regurgitated this 1,000 times. It's like, we can't kick the ball down because we keep missing the ball to kick it. We know what it looks like, but we have problems with our visuals, I guess, is every time we try to take a kick to the ball, it doesn't move down the thing. It's just regurgitated, whatever the last person's regurgitated online. So anyways, that's all I'll share right now. I got to take care of my little Dotson up here, so I'll be listening, but go ahead.
To further on Leon's point there is, as well as, it's that old echo chamber thing, is a lot of people don't want to hear the opposite. Like you see all the time online, or you hear, DNA has proved Sasquatch exists. No, it hasn't. It's either you have the Melba Ketchum study, which is anything that's really peer reviewed will tell you that it's nonsense, or they'll talk about studies that say unknown primate. Well, a lot of the people that will go out and talk about these studies have never bothered to look at expert critique of those studies that show whether they were just fallacies in the study itself, or whether they were problems with the study. They just will glom on, an expert said, without even looking at it. And we get that all the time. We get that in the films as well. You got people now doing 4K resolution upgrades on the PGF, and they're saying, you can see the facial expressions and you can see the eyebrows on Patty. No, you can't. You know what? That is AI that has filled that in to make it like you can't get more information out of a 16 millimeter film than it had there originally. So all these enhancements out there are just either creating through AI stuff that's not there, or people are imagining they're seeing stuff that's not there. And very seldom do we actually, when we have something that we believe in, look at the studies that are legitimate studies by other experts that contradict it. You hear all the time with the PGF, science has never been able to disprove it, or people have a different body proportion than Patty? How many people have actually looked at some of the counter studies that say no, Patty is within a certain percentage of the human population? They don't do that. They just look at the one study that gives them the information they want, and they leave it at that.
In other words, what Bill is saying, a lot of the so-called Sasquatch community are only interested in storytellings and pretending to be Mulder and Scully. They're not really interested in whether or not the creature exists or not.
No, of course not. And
I was on Steve Call's program, and I brought up a case that's been bugging me now for the last 15 years. You've heard me talk about, the cameras in the wildlife crosses in national parks in Canada and stuff like that. Well, I said, and I'm going to repeat it here, I think the next 5 years in the Sasquatch field, whether or not you want to prove its existence or not, is vital, because the I-5 highway in Washington has just built wildlife tunnels under the I-5 highway north of Vancouver. And unlike the cameras in Canada, these cameras will be 24/7, 365 days a year, and apparently we can even look at them on the internet. So I give it to 2030 that if they in that time they get photograph and film evidence of every large animal we know is there, and they've already got footage of a grizzly bear that they never thought had gone that far south from the Canadian border. If we don't get some evidence of the Sasquatch, then I have to really wonder why. But there are so many people in the whole Sasquatch community, they don't care about that, whether or not evidence points. It goes back to what I said. If you're a researcher, you're also trying to prove its non-existence as well as its existence. I want to find the answer. I'm not a religious fanatic trying to push a faith, And to me, if the evidence eventually proves to its non-existence, so that's just going to just piss so many people off that they'll just tune it out. Do you agree with me?
I could see even Thomas. I mean, I could see in the future too. Once people who want to hoax or make this thing perpetuate itself, once they find out about the cameras, some guy's going to dress in a suit and walk by the camera.
Of course,
and so and then people are going to jump on the bandwagon. Hey, Gerry, can we get rid of Raptor's comment there, because it's kind of
I've been trying to get a word in 4 minutes. Yeah, Raptor Crazy says that's why I always ask, where's the proof? And I totally agree with you, Raptor. Whereas for many years ago, being a member of the the BFFR, we were so fed up with the anecdotal stories that were coming in by the hundreds to that forum that, and many of us refused to even read those unless there was some evidence to go along with the anecdotal story, not just a story, because they were getting to be a dime a dozen. I know anecdotal does have its use when it comes to research.
Yeah.
But it's this was just pseudoscience kind of thing, and we dropped off so many encounter stories after that, and no one would talk to us because it was a group of us. It was a group of us. You know a lot of them, Thomas, that just refused to put up with the nonsense anymore because we wanted to talk about the real important stuff that's happening out there, instead of being swamped by these tales. And we would not listen to anything that didn't have at least a smidgen of evidence to go along with it, even if it's, another person was there, anything at all.
Well,
that's what scares you. See, the original part of this is what scares me the most. Now, the How to Hunt guy, formerly known as How to Hunt guy, imagine what he can do with this. Give me a half hour and a machine to turn on, and on the internet, I got enough here to last me for the rest of my life if I just stop running out of printing paper. You know, I got enough
You
for a
know,
lifetime and a half hour.
yeah, and the other thing, like Thomas mentions those i5 cameras, and this is where AI comes in. You're not going to need a guy in a suit to run past one of the cameras. All you're going to need is a guy to download a section of that video, use AI to insert a Sasquatch walking in front of it, post that on the internet, and then when people are turning around and saying, that's AI or it's fake or whatever, you'll have the people do the fallback uh, complaint they always do. Oh, it's a government conspiracy. That was a real film, and the government has photoshopped that out because they don't want you to know about it. So again, this is where legitimate researchers, where at times we're we're peeing against the wind, for want of a better phrase, because no matter what we do, it's just not getting out there.
Well, the thing is also that what is available to the general public in A&I is limited. That's why when you put a scenario in like that, you'll end up with a couple of cartoonish type characters. It'll be what you want, but it'll be cartoonish type characters. Like on
That's
the intro, to this, I put in. I thought of Thomas's almost encounter down on Chilliwack River Road with the Sasquatch taking off with this string of trout, and I said, "Give me a picture of Sasquatch with a string of trout," and within 10 seconds, bloop, there it was for me. And I said, that's pretty neat, cartoonish, but pretty neat. If you want the real A&I stuff, it'll cost you. It'll cost you. There's lots of sites out there, but it'll cost you.
No, it's not. It's not. It's going to, like you said, that time window when you said about by 2025, that's a year away.
Yep.
Anything that's online regarding programming doubles its capacity. I think it's every 18 months.
18 months.
So whatever level it's at, it 100% increases it every 18 months. And we can watch the quality of videos that are coming out compared to 10 years ago, or even when I started 7 years ago. You can get so many programs that do everything for you, change the angle, wrap around thing. And this is Joe Blow people. I mean, for us, it's like when people got on the bandwagon, at least it's for our generation, it's like you can almost have your own TV show and you can have your own audience and you can have your own topic. But because of the way technology is going, especially with programs, you get all this other programs already pre-done where you don't have to do all this extra work of editing and stuff. You can just throw it right on there. And if you just watch movies over the last, think of Jurassic Park, how far that was. What is that, 30 years ago? When it came
1993,
out? Yeah. Harry Potter came out 20 years ago, which is really hard to believe. Yeah, whatever. I don't know if you want to but if you look at that was like 30 years ago. And now if you watch David Attenborough's and if you watch any kind of shows where they talk about prehistoric animals, like documentaries and stuff like that, you cannot tell those aren't AI by watching the documentaries. Now that's going to come down and filter down into this online scene, because this is the new TV. This is the new movie. Is this thing, this online internet thing, and that information is going to get down there. It's going to get easier and easier and easier for people to use. And it's just not a problem about Sasquatch. It's spread across cultural boundaries. Is we don't know what's real anymore. We're starting to lose the capacity to be critical thinkers. They don't really teach much of that. Well, they seem to in the younger years in school, but they don't really teach you how to stay critical thinking. And if you are critical thinking because you ask a question, you're attacked, which makes you want to shut up. And that's the problem, is if everyone shuts up and no one pushes the buttons a bit, in order for me to speak, I have to have the right to offend you. The same way you have the right to offend me. But the idea isn't, like Thomas, you mentioned this before. If a person personalizes something, they've already lost the debate, because they're not talking about the information.
Absolutely.
They're personalizing you. They're attacking you, but they're not. And it's kind of deflection flack or whatever. Well, look over here, and all this kind of stuff and stuff. What does that have to do with a Sasquatch?
Yeah,
and
right.
I mean is,
and you've noticed a trend early on, because this AI is still fairly new, that so far the so-called Sasquatch photographs AI, the story is, the trend now is to say, oh, it's a photograph that was taken back in the 70s that we just found in a lost drawer somewhere or something like that. Or, an old photograph from the 1800s. Now, eventually you're going to notice that die out. And people are going to say this new thing as the technology gets better. And it's going to be harder and harder and harder to try to say, well, come on. I mean, one of the best arguments we've had is since in the 60 years or so since the PG film was filmed, that why nothing of that quality has ever come up again. Well, now stuff that's going to be looking that good is going to be coming up all the time. Yeah.
Well, Anne Hollowell says, are you implying Steve Esadal is making up stories? I said, well, he will be now. That's all I can say about that.
All Steve Esadal does is read what people send him on email. So I could repeat that verbatim all the time. The biggest thing I noticed, and what Bill was saying earlier about the numbers of reports coming in and some of these podcasts that just rank them out like a vending machine. I mean, if I get 2 or 3 good sounding reports a year, that's a good year. Now they're coming out with 100 different stories a week. I mean, when I began, you almost had the prior information of a witness. Now they're coming out of the woodwork. Oh.
How you doing, tall ones? Good to see you.
Yeah, that is the thing. Go ahead, Leon. No, you go ahead,
Thanks.
Leon.
I just want to point out, like, for that statement that just came up there, the question is, how are you going to know he's not just reading the stories?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that, look at he reads the stories. The stories are great. We like Sasquatch. Therefore, we're set up into have a cognitive bias towards it because we want it to be true. But how do you know the person narrating to you a narration, which I chronically would tell people to be cautious of, a narration is that it's factual. How would you discover that? Now, I don't have to give you that answer. That would be a good practicum for anybody to figure out, how are you going to tell whether another person is telling the truth and not about what they're saying. I had another discussion with somebody, a different topic, and I said, a different topic, but I said, what you need to figure out is this: you're asking the wrong question. The right question. I'm sorry, you guys. I've been the move just wiped me right out, so I haven't been online. And I did get your message, Nikki. Sorry. But I said to him, he kept talking about two ideas, and he kept favoring this one idea. And I kept saying to him, you're asking the wrong question. You're just buying into they want the same idea. Ask yourself this question. Try to figure out this puzzle. If 2 people were standing in front of you, both of them looked like they were totally sincere and believed what they said to you as truth and fact, what techniques would you do to find out whether or not they're actually telling you, or which of the 2 would tell you? What techniques would you, sorry, my brain again is having some problems today. What would you come up with to figure out which one is telling you more factual evidence than the other one, who might be adding on to an idea they have? But it comes across and this is what a good storyteller does. He'll tell you a story, and it's such a good storyteller that you can't really decipher whether or not it's valid or not. And that's one thing that we have to kind of figure out ourselves is, if you're talking to 2 people, because you can have 2 people from 2 different sides, 2 schools of thought that are going to come at you with 2 discussions that are both going to sound pretty solid. How are you going to find that out? Now, I could tell you that, but it's much better for you to figure that question out yourself. So you've learned it from the inside out. How would I find that out? How would I know that these 4 guys you're watching right now aren't blowing smoke up your arse? If you have a cognitive bias, it'll be easy for you to pick that up. Oh, they are, obviously, because they don't like one of my favorite,
once again, Thomas.
cows. So
there you go. Lots of smoke.
Yeah, yeah, good timing, by the way, Bill. It's like, I'm not interested. There's no sacred cows when you're doing investigating. In nothing, no topic, nothing at all. You're allowed to look at everything. And if a person can give you some more valid stuff without saying at least, I don't know, that would be nice to hear from some people, I don't know, I got about this far, but I don't know about the rest, Well, okay, well, if I'm totally wrong that there's nothing out here that I think is a Sasquatch, well, I have to say that.
Of course.
And a person being sincere doesn't mean they're right. Like two examples I'll give with Thomas is, Thomas did this one where they were on site 24 and a half hours after the witness had their sighting. And it was one of those rare sightings where it had two good landmarks. She was on a dock. She knew exactly where she was standing on a dock. And the Sasquatch was supposedly walking on a park trail and turned up a T intersection. So you had two fixed points. And we went there, and I wasn't actually part of it. Thomas and Brad, another one of our group, was there. And, we had the exact same phone as her. So we took pictures. And this woman believes she saw a Sasquatch. However, this was like 10 o'clock in the afternoon on a sunny day in the middle of a municipal park. Nobody else saw anything. But when she was describing the facial details that the Sasquatch had, it would be physically impossible for her to make those details at that distance unless she had binoculars on. Now, she legitimately believed it. But, you can legitimately believe something is wrong. We had another person that we did an investigation that, we originally had their encounter a couple of years ago, and they were terrified. And it's one of the most, interviewing this person, I mean, they were crying. And this was like a week after the fact. It upset them so badly. They 100% believed what they saw, and I got no... we can't say that he was wrong there. But a year later, he contacts Thomas again with another sighting or suspected sighting. And when Thomas was doing the interview, this person again was absolutely dead certain that there was a Sasquatch encounter he had. But there were some people around that were making it pretty evident that they were just playing a trick on this guy. And, he was just not believing that they played a trick on him. So again, just because you 100% believe something to be true doesn't necessarily mean it is.
I just want to say a quick hello to Nikki and Ann and Stephen and Jan. How you doing, Jan? She ain't going to reply. I don't know what you're waiting for.
Yeah, well, what Bill was talking about was a fascinating case. It was one of the rare cases. Poor Bill, when it happened to be way up north somewhere on a fishing trip or a hunting trip.
I left on this vacation with my wife to visit her uncle up in the Caribou. I walk in the door. My phone rings not 2 minutes after I walk in the door, and it's Thomas. It says, "Hey, I just got a call from somebody. We're going in the morning to investigate. Do you want to come?" My response was, "Son of a..."
Timing is everything sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. But again, whenever you've heard me say this before, Gerry, whenever you're dealing with eyewitness testimony, always keep in the back of your mind, there's only three possibilities here. Only three. One, they saw a Sasquatch. Two, they mistook someone or something for a Sasquatch. Or three, they're lying. And I have to, and as much as a lot of people don't like to hear this, I think number three is becoming more prominent than ever it was in the past. And one of the major reasons for that is the internet. Okay. People used to be, like I said, we used to have to pry information from a witness because people didn't want to be called a liar. Now it seems the population don't give a damn. They just want their 5 minutes of, hey, I'm Mulder and Scully, and they'll say anything if it gets them click time or whatever. And a lot of these shows have been on the last few years, like, finding Bigfoot and stuff. They've fallen victim to hey, let's make this up and see if we can fool them, and I think that happens more and more and more. And, whoa, what's that? I'm hearing my own voice here.
That's Gerry. He should have muted himself before he left the desk.
But the main point is AI has just made everything that much more difficult. It's made serious investigation into whether or not this creature actually exists that much harder. But it's made the storytelling, the old wives' tale club, happy as hell.
My girl.
Yeah. And that's just the reality we have to deal with.
Tell me something.
Well, in groupthink, that's the thing too. Is once something becomes a cultural, think of it again. Just think the last 10 years how Bigfoot has become a cultural thing in regards to festivals for small towns and stuff like that. And once it becomes that, it gets into this area, this gray area of groupthink, which is because I am now affiliated with people and we have a community of people and stuff like that. What my credit score goes up a little bit if I can come up with the idea, maybe not lying. I think I saw a Sasquatch. For me to stand out and do what I do and say, I think I saw a Sasquatch on the back of a moose, yeah, right. That's fucking crazyville. Sorry about the F-bomb there, but yeah, that's crazyville. And, but I didn't see a full grown Sasquatch like on my icon that pops up here when my camera's off. But, it certainly seems something that I have questions about. And in order for me to figure out those questions, I have to ask questions. The problem is if I ask the questions I need for the answers that I need to get the information from, I get attacked over because I'm not following the narration of the groupthink, then we're not moving ahead one iota in any of this issue. And I think that's the key part for I'm glad that Brent has kind of went on his own way. And I think people need to go on their own way. There's a lot of Lone Rangers out here, but I think a lot of the Lone Rangers who go their own way have just alternative, not interested in knowing the facts about, but their identity strokes they get from, people listen to me, I have all these followers, blah, 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 whatever. It's a waste of time. If we would just stop, which I've mentioned this before, which I know that this will never happen, everyone stop posting videos for an entire year unless somebody has something stellar. Because if that would happen and all the garbage would be wiped off the board and something stellar came in and we all looked at it and we all would say, that's pretty freaking stellar, that fire under our arses would be what we need in a driving factor inside ourselves to do what's necessary to find out whether or not these things are real and they are what we think they are. Or is it something else? Is it all just BS? And if you're scared to ask that question, then you're not a very good researcher because it might all be BS. And I have been in things that I thought were not BS. And I didn't become healthy until I realized they were BS.
Well, I mean, I've grown very skeptical about the subject because, I mean, the PG film, either it is or it isn't. And that was, I don't know how many decades ago that was, and it's never been repeated. They said that's the big evidence of the day. Then along comes the Sierra Sounds 50 years ago. Never recorded before, never recorded since. What the hell is that? That is the next big evidence of the day. Then there's the Skookum Cast, which is, that's a sticky wicket no matter which way you look at it. And Howler and Raptor, welcome. Good to see you here. And yeah, that is, Oh, wow. What's the next big thing, hey? You know, what's the next big thing
UFOs.
that isn't going to move the gauge needle at iota?
I know. And again, that's what the problem is when you have groupthink or belief systems thinking in a group of people or a community. The problem is the idea is more important than what the actual topic is.
Uh-huh.
And that's that. It's also known as the painted bike shed approach. You're not interested in they're putting a nuclear bomb, a nuclear facility outside in your property of your town. You're more interested in what color the bike shed is going to be, that they want to put the beautiful garden around, what color paint it's going to be, and that's what ends up happening. It sounds ridiculous, but we get so much into the idea of the idea that we forget about what the topic is. And there's no foundational growth on the topic, just the ideas keep expanding. It's like if you deal with people in cults. Cults have been around for a long time in a variety of forms, and cults have been asked all the questions that they need to be asked. But over that time of being asked all these questions that a rational person would think, they come up with these answers. So in other words, when that question comes, the cult already knows what the response should be to that. And it becomes this parroting idea. And the parroting idea works well for the inlings that are stuck in the bubble of the cult, but it doesn't stick well with the people who are still trying to figure out the answer. If you have a kid that's growing up and he keeps asking you questions, it's because you're not answering the question he's asking you. You probably can't even hear what he's asking you because you're in your head thinking, well, that's stupid, or that's that, and don't think that way. And it's like the problem is the kid's stuck, and we get stuck as adults. And if things don't move forward, we don't know. Do you want to know what you're looking for? Don't you? There's only, stick to the facts, don't deviate from the facts. Is what we're looking for solid enough so you can say to people, blah? We need to be able to be educated. In other words, get off your high horse and trust that there's people who are trying to educate you. But that's been really hard recently, I've noticed in the last few years, of how do you get educated by people when you have all these people that are spouting off all this bogus stuff, but not a single one of them is telling you, can you please tell me how you know that? Like, I was out in the bush for the first time, I think third time yesterday, and I was with a whole bunch of people who know that I'm into Bigfoot and that. and I would point out all the things that people would say online that this is a Bigfoot. And they were just laughing their heads off. And they have a right to laugh their heads off, because it's the number one researcher is the finger pointer, in the videos. Mm-hmm. See those three trees like that? See how they're leaning up against that? That's a directional tree done by a Sasquatch. You see those rocks on top of these other rocks? That's done by a Sasquatch. No, it's not. Those structures right there, those are all done. No, it's not done by a Sasquatch. It's done by people into bushcraft. It's madness. And this is what I'm talking about. If you don't have enough information, you go get it. It's definitely out there, but don't go into the bubble to get the answer, because they're going to get the parroting of what it is. And then they're going to come at you and point fingers at you and attack you.
Well, make you Leon, look what happened to you in 2020 when you had the unmitigated nerve to take the best set of tracks in 10 years and discover they were actually moose tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
There weren't people praising you for investigating and getting the true answer. Oh, well, I did. But there are a lot of people saying, like, boy, you ruined the party.
But again, the better part of that, Leon, was you didn't give an opinion that they were a moose track. What you did is you went there, you visually and showed how you investigated it, how you cut away the top layers of snow, and then at the end of the day, as you were doing that, it was a readily identifiable moose track that was at the bottom of that snow. So it was not it is a little bit that I gave Leon the opinion, because it was just a moose track, but it was clear, concise evidence that it wasn't a Sasquatch. It was, this is what it actually is at the bottom. It looks like a moose footprint, so therefore that's probably what it is. The same thing.
And the bonus of it too.
Pardon me?
I was just going to say, the other thing too is it was done by our skeptic who does not believe in Sasquatch. Because imagine if it was a Sasquatch print and getting him on film going, holy shit, you guys come and look at this. See, that's what we're waiting. That's the one good video we're waiting for, is for somebody who's not a believer, doesn't buy this stuff at all. He's honest, though. That's what I like about him. Is
See, that's
he
where
calls
we
it
went
what it
wrong.
is.
That's where we went wrong, Thomas. We
Right.
should have
'Cause
videoed
you
those
guys were-
goddamn coyotes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were hooped. You were hooped. You're the target because you're one of us, right? How dare one of us say that we're wrong?
Yeah.
Thomas and I had another one.
Totally different.
The last video that came from Mission, from local. We not only, and I almost quit research over this because I got so sick of being attacked when I was trying to explain to online, because we had two well-known guys that go and look at videos and supposedly analyze them and tell you whether they're true or fake. And one, I think, is 90% they're always true. We did the research, not only find out that it was a local app company was involved. We had the guy that came out that said, I was the guy that they filmed, and had an interview with Thomas and explained exactly what he was doing when somebody filmed him. So at best, it was a case of mistaken identity, and at worst, it was an intentional hoax. But when that guy came out on one of the local, when it was actually on a Facebook, or sorry, a chat on one of the local radio stations that showed the video, when he came out and said, hey, I was the guy being filmed, this is what I was doing, you had all these Sasquatch believers attack him on the site, tell him he was a liar, and he basically said, F you guys, you're all nuts, I'm staying away from you. And the person that was a personal friend of his, that was a friend of ours, that introduced us, had to convince him to talk to us because he was so sure that Sasquatch people were nuts that he didn't want anything to do with us. And lucky, and we had the means, the motive, the person, everything to convict. And you get all these people, 5 and 6 years later, still saying, "Oh wow, this is a great Sasquatch video." Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do at times; it's not enough.
No, and that's what I'm talking about. Is you have to stay, and it's a tough balancing trick to stay objective in things, and people don't really understand what it means to be objective. Like they don't. I keep saying, like even when I'm dealing with clients, I'll keep saying, stay objective at the data down here, not being subjective in your mind with your feelings taken with you in regards to what you're hearing me say. Because it doesn't matter what I'm saying. I don't want you to be subjective about it. I want you to be objective about it, because I need you to be objective to find out what you think about things, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. And as I think Jordan Peterson says, I want to be, if I'm wrong, I want to know what's right, so I don't have to be wrong anymore. And that's what's also so frustrating, is once you start realizing when the data and the research you do, and it starts falling into place of being solid, pretty solid, and you still have this 100-to-1 ratio, you and 99 other people who are feeding on the narration that's online, and you're saying to them, those structures are not made from Sasquatch. Well, yes, they are. Why? Why would a Sasquatch make a structure smaller than itself? Well, it's for its children to play with. How do you know that? Are there any prints around the structure? No. Like there's just so many, when you're looking at data, and again, I've said this since I first got online 7 years ago, which is don't throw anything else. So don't throw anything away. All your sacred cow people you follow online, all the sacred information that everyone's thinking is Sasquatch, put it in a little box, stick it up here on the shelf, grab one idea and bring it down and look at it from every angle. Prove it to be wrong. That's your job as a good researcher, is you're looking for it to be wrong. When you can't prove it to be wrong, then you follow the breadcrumbs of what is sticking out that doesn't make sense. And then you'll learn that part. And then maybe you'll learn that it does make sense. You just didn't have enough information to know. Or maybe you might be onto something there. And that's, like Gerry said at the very beginning, it takes 15 times the amount, 1,500 times probably the amount of energy to look at something, to validate it, and it'll take you time on top of that to figure out whether or not you know what you're talking about, compared to somebody just saying something, and then you have to disprove it, and then all these people are going to back this person because they like this person. The person might be stringing you along, you know.
Yeah, you see, that's the difference between a scientific approach and a pseudoscience approach. Pseudoscience is you make a hypothesis and then you only accept evidence that fits into your hypotheses. Scientific method is you make a hypothesis and you take all the evidence, good and bad, until you're proven right or until your hypothesis is proven wrong. And basically, that's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, and the number one reward to a scientist is to prove somebody else's perspective wrong, so everyone can see, we're on the right track now because that was wrong what we were following before. Not that the person who came up with the original idea was bad, you know, and that's the thing, is it becomes personalized, that subjective. They can't help but feel embarrassed and foolish. Trust me, I feel embarrassed and foolish about some of the stuff I thought at the very beginning of this whole process. Man, I might as well have been drinking Kool-Aid from the Kool-Aid guy who's coming through the wall. Yeah, just jump in my mouth, you know, because I'm also trusting, which is the setup for falling into inappropriate systems, is you're a trusting person, you're an honest person, you believe you're trying to be fair about the whole thing, realizing that sometimes you haven't been fair, sometimes you realize you haven't been as truthful, but those are usually those are usually developmental things that haven't had the chance to practice or polish, and now that the practice and polish, you confess up, you know, like if you're ever dealing with a moron, or not a moron, if you're ever dealing with a sociopath or a psychopath or a narcissist, get them in a group with other people and say, oh yeah, man, I've been such a moron. There was this time when I was younger, blah, blah, and then share the story. And everyone usually will laugh. But if they're sociopathic or narcissistic, they're not going to be able to say it the way other people would say it.
What you are all saying basically is, don't be afraid if you want to get into research, is stick to the facts and never deviate from the facts.
No,
that would make a good saying. I got to write that down, Thomas.
Yeah, okay.
Can I use it in my future book?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be wrong, because like you look at one of the best genetic researchers, in my opinion, was Dr. Sykes, and he did that genetic study on a bunch of Sasquatch, supposed Sasquatch sightings or samples, about 8 years ago now. And in his original report, he said that he was all excited because one of the samples that they tested, he thought was from a hybrid polar bear, grizzly bear that had been thought to be extinct for 40,000 years. And I remember when that original report came out, I was really excited about that because I was thought, hey, this is great. But when another group of geneticists came out and did a review of his study, they came back and said, no, he was wrong in that analysis. It was just a modern bear. And when he took a look at the researcher, the people that did the peer review and what they did, he came out and said, hey, we were wrong. They are right. It wasn't a hybrid that we thought were extinct. It's a modern bear. Glad they caught the error. And that's what the scientific process really is about. When you put that information, you don't put it behind, paywalls and buy your own magazine to publish your works. You put it out there in a legitimate journal for people to see, and then when those people come back that have the appropriate responses, validate those responses. And if you think they're wrong, then that goes into the back and forth of scientific discovery. But if they're right, acknowledge they're right and say, like Dr. Sykes did, we were wrong.
Bill
it helps everyone relax and move forward with the topic. And that's the key part, is it's not a bad thing to be wrong, because we want to know what we're looking at. And if Thomas, like when I first interviewed Thomas, when I first kind of came out into the Bigfoot world, And, you know, he was hilarious especially because I'm interviewing, when he says, well, you know, I was just talking to a researcher. He says he just saw a baby Sasquatch in the back of a moose. Well, we're filming. I just told him it like 20 minutes before that. But, you know, I know Thomas because I've been watching him for so long that I can trust that Thomas is not mocking me. Thomas is shooting across my bow in a way to get me to think, are you sure that's what you're looking at? Or are you mistaken something for a Sasquatch? You think it might be a Sasquatch. And I appreciate that. Now, a lot of times, you know, depending on what kind of family came out of, first of all, they had a critical parent. You can't be wrong because you've always had to defend yourself as a little kid. So you're going to come up with being very personalized when someone's trying to help you. And I get this all the time because I notice when I'm trying to assist people, they are misinterpreting because they're so suspicious because they come out of some pretty tough, manipulative backgrounds of everybody that they can't even recognize somebody who's actually caring for them right in front of their face. They don't know what that looks like. They have no idea of what a caring person actually is, that actually has their best interest, nor would they, because they came out of a very suspicious background where they've had to be on all the time. So to have somebody who's actually caring is so foreign to them that there's no data inside their bodies to interpret whether or not a person's on their side or not on their side. And it's really hard. Unfortunately, I have to tell people what I think is going on, even if it's going to cause chaos in a family, because I'm not going to sit there and be with the offender when the person who's being offended on is sitting in the room saying something that's going to deny the reality of what the offender's doing to the person actually doing the topic. And what I find online is that same idea that when you're in the bubble, if you're coming online and listening to us for the first time, you guys out there in TV or the internet world, to be very cautious of everybody, including us. There, we'll put ourselves in the middle of it, including us in anything that we say. Because I know that these three guys, if I am curious about anything and I'm wrong, they're going to help me understand why I'm wrong and what I'm trying to do. And I can narrate to them why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, why I think it might be that way. And I have 4 brains, including my own, to look at a topic. And that's why God gave us 1 brain and 1 heart, because usually if we had so many dysfunctional people in our head already with their scripts, it would make us crazy. And I don't need more craziness, and I don't have time for craziness. And Nikki, thank you for the compliment and that I look good, but I can guarantee you my levels to even be on the show today, I wasn't even too sure I was going to be able to make it today. It's a slow process for me. I'm on a different time zone than most people are. So I don't want to spend any time, and nor will I spend any time in the Bigfoot religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's turned into a in-house ideology of beliefs instead of give me some facts, show me the money. Show me the money. 7 years I've been doing this. I'm not seeing any new information. I'm not seeing any new videos. I'm not seeing any new anything other than maybe stuff I've come across that I still have questions about. That's it.
Well, I mean, it's all.
Go ahead, Gerry.
Yeah, okay. It's hey, what'd your dog have something to say? Speak up, laddie. Speak up. No, I was just going to say. I forgot what I was going to say. Carry on, Bill.
That's because we're old. Look at this. We're all old men now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill. What were you going to talk about?
Okay, first the howler. That's not a drawing on my left. That's actually a model of a sailing ship that my grandfather made by hand while my grandmother had cancer, and it's all handmade, including the sails, which were made out of bed sheets that he sewed himself, and it actually does float as well. But back to and thank you for noticing. But what I was also going to say on Leon is it doesn't have to be an us versus them when you're looking at this. Like in our group, in our local research group that we have, we have, and I'll use Brad Trent's name because he's come out and done videos in that. He has what he believes is a Sasquatch sighting, and he also had a report of what he believed were a trackway that he found, and he had reported back to John Green back in the 70s. And, you know, we have talked to him, we've gone through the whole steps on the interview. And at the end of the day, either if a Sasquatch exists, he saw a Sasquatch. If he didn't, if Sasquatch don't exist, don't have a clue what he saw. But again, we're close friends, we're fellow researchers, and he understands that us as skeptics can compartmentalize and say, we're not calling you a liar, we're not calling you stupid, or any of those other things. We just don't have an explanation for it. We respect him, he respects us, and we can look at issues together. So that's one of the biggest things you always hear on these different Facebook groups. That is, if you don't believe in Sasquatch, why are you here? Well, it's simple. I'm here because the question intrigues me, and I want to know the answer to that question. And even if you're a believer or a skeptic, if we can work at finding the answer together, it's a lot more conductive than sitting there throwing stones at each other consistently. But all I ask is you're honest with me, and I'll do the same with you.
Yeah, but throwing stones is what happens when your boredom level is high. And face it, this is one hell of a boring subject as far as facts and proof and anything sane going into your head on the subject. This is not conducive to it. I mean, I get so fed up with this subject at times that, you know, why am I wasting my time doing this? I should be a gun advocate or something like that, and, you know, go that route with this CCFR or something, you know, and make my time on Earth mean something. But I'm like Leon, man. I mean, like, I'm on the outside looking in now, and surprise me with something wonderful.
Okay, the Howler. The ship is over on my left, on my right. It's just the way you were talking about it, the way it was on the screen. That picture that you're seeing in the corner, that's actually a watermark that Gerry has on there for the Buckwast crew. I think Gerry actually designed that logo for us. He can give you more information on it.
That's a replica of a birch bark mask. Thomas would know this, by the Kwakiutl tribe in Kwakiwak. Yes, you've been practicing. And that is a replica. I have, let me see. I don't know if I do here. This is a transparency, I think. Yes, that's a transparency. So that doesn't show it very well.
Yeah, Howard, if my box was up in Bill's position, you'd see that figure up on my bookcase.
Yeah, that's all. I got rid of them. I had a bunch of different ones here, and I got rid of them. But anyway, there's an actual picture of that. If you look up the Pacific Northwest Indian tribes or whatever, you will eventually come across a picture of that mask. As a matter of fact, I have it tattooed on my arm. I get my arm in here somehow. It's no, can't do it. Anyway, that's a testament to the coyote, and that myself and Thomas discerned this noises it was making, and we proved that to be a falsehood. And there's a belly inside of. Inside the belly, there's the birch mask that you see up there. And it was just reminiscent of past successes and defeats. I mean, especially Thomas, he received a lot of crap over that one because, you know, there goes the Klamath River Sound, and there goes Puyallup Sound, and there goes, you know. It's all done by coyotes, folks. Calm down, go home, move along. Nothing to see or hear here. And people don't like that when you take their gods away. They you know, I mean, they got nothing to cling to. I mean, you can't believe in the sounds anymore. Well, there's precious little evidence out there. What do you do now? Even that's taken away from you. So it's anyway, that's the story about
all comes down to if you want to know the facts or not, or if you want to know the truth or not. You know.
Yeah, like Leon says, do you want to really know what you saw, or do you want to know what you really saw?
Yeah.
Is a better way to put. Yeah.
Well, there are just too many people who don't like it when you shoot their Santa Claus. So.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
the
but
problem
would
is for a
you?
lot of people, we've got 4 old guys on here
Yeah.
who have long memories. Like somebody mentioned that, hey, Leon, young people under 40 don't understand what you mean by drinking the Kool-Aid. But the other thing we have is like Thomas has been in this since he was 2, and a lot of these facts that people talk about with
Since he was
Sasquatch,
2.
he can remember when researchers first put forward as speculation, such as the tree knocks and whatever, and when that was just somebody asked a what if question that now 40 years later it's being taken as facts, and that's part of the problem that we get is sometimes we may sound like was it Statler and Waldorf on the old Muppet Show, another old reference, that we're just grumpy old guys, but some of it is we've been there, we've seen it before 5, 6, 10 times or more, and that's why we sometimes may sound a little dismissive.
Well, I've been myself actively doing this for 21 years, 22 years, and that doesn't count the 90s with the time spent on Bigfoot forums for several years. And yeah, I mean, it's a PG film, that's it. Cling on to it if you must. But, I mean, to me, it makes no difference if it's real or not real, because it hasn't pushed the needle anywhere at all. No more have the sounds, or no more has the cast. And I can't think of anything that makes you go, aha, now
Yeah,
I
well,
can base something
that's
on
the
this.
biggest problem with AI. It's now taking video and photographic evidence into the realm of okay, it's probably not real. It all comes down to science getting what science has always demanded: body or piece of the body or sufficient skeletal remains.
The
What's
only
the real
thing,
big story? It's going to be when someone says, "Jesus, we just hit something on the Trans Canada Highway. What the hell is this thing?"
yeah, I know that, but the only thing that keeps me in the game, Thomas, the only thing in the way of evidence is the footprints.
Young
The
cars.
footprints are just a conundrum that cannot be solved.
Yeah, I know. There was a few sets I can't explain away either, and I've tried.
As Rennie the
Yep.
Hinman would say, something's making those goddamn tracks.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's true. Something's making those tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, going back to you with the PGF, even if the PGF film, let's just say it was a true, real film with a real Sasquatch in it, we're now removed 54 years from when that was taken. It's never been replicated since, or at least in my opinion, it's never been repeated. So, theoretically, that could have been the last Sasquatch on Earth, or one of the last of the dying breed, because, again, repeatability, you would think that in this modern era with everyone with cell phones, everyone with cameras, and all this other stuff that we have that we didn't have 55 years ago, if there was Sasquatch still around, that you would at least have the equal to the PGF, and we don't. So,
But what are the odds, Bill, that two guys get together, go riding horses for a couple of days, trying to find evidence of Sasquatch and actually film a Sasquatch?
Oh, I don't. Again, everyone knows
it is a head scratcher.
I do not believe the Sasquatch exists. I don't believe it exists now or any time in human history, and I don't think the Gigantopithecus is a proper model for the Sasquatch. Some believe. So for me, the only question mark that I have with the PGF is that I've met Bob Gimlin a couple of times, and when I've talked to him, he seems like the nicest, most sincerest guy.
True.
And as anyone that's done, and I'm not calling him a psychopath or anything like that, but I have people in my family that have mental health issues that I know are telling BS stories, and they've told it so well and so often they believe it themselves. And I'm not saying Bob Gimlin's doing that, and I don't want anyone to intimate that I'm saying that, but I'm just saying, as much as there's a possibility that it's real, there's a possibility that he's fooled us.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, there's always that possibility, but I have to admit, like many other people who met Bob or spent time with him, when he's talking to you, when he's looking into your eyes and you're discussing the subject, you can't help but feel this guy is telling the honest to God truth as he knows it.
And thankfully, having Thomas as a friend, he's given me, a couple of times personal access to Bob where it wasn't at a conference and got to just talk to him in a relaxed atmosphere. And his story, and if again, it's one of those things, if Sasquatch exists, he saw it. If Sasquatch don't exist, it would break my heart just to think that he lied to guys like Thomas and which were his good friends. And to me, he doesn't give the opinion of it, but I'm not a trained observer like Mr. Leon there is, and he might have a different impression from watching the videos.
Yeah, I have a different impression. There's so many things that a person could be holding in, speaking truth, especially if you speak it over 40 years, that becomes truth to them. And there's other things like law of the cowboy, law of the gangster, law of the mobster that hold you true to the day you die. And those things, it is pretty heartbreaking. There's plenty of people on the planet where everyone who's known their whole lives
that describes Patterson. It doesn't describe Gimlin.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's the thing too, is if I looked at it on just face evidences, instead of pretending it's real or not, let's just all pretend it's not real enough. It's 50 some years, 54 years. Forget about it. It's not helping out anything. Going back into it is kind of like saying, well, the Romans China might have been in North America, but we don't know. Okay, until we find something that proves they were, then let's not stop looking for something that might prove they're real instead of being offended by it. And, there's a whole bunch of facts. I have a problem with the video, especially it's the only primate that has hair on its breasts. No other primate ever has had hair on its breasts ever.
Yeah,
no known primate.
And that's like me. I think that the video looks fake as hell, and I always have since the time I was 5. But again, excuse me, I think Dr. Biggernagel had the best explanation for the PGF. And that was when he was on an interview, and he said there's been so much time behind it, so much noise with what people are saying makes it real, what makes it fake, that the best thing to do, it's now ruined for really any evidence, best thing to do is just put it away to the side and say, yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't show anything either way. And if Sasquatch are proven to exist, maybe go back to it. I don't think we'll ever be able to prove that they don't exist because, no matter what explanation you have for non-existence, true believers will come up with a reason on why you're wrong.
Yes, I don't think it's a matter of true believers. I mean, if I want to be proved wrong, that's fine. That's wonderful. If you can tell me what's making those tracks and demonstrate how those tracks are made, wonderful. I'll pack up my little tent and leave, and you'll never hear from me again. Problem is solved, But that's you. There true believers will always come up with, because there's no way, because they can always fall back on, hey, if 0.1% of encounters are real, that means Sasquatch is real. If 0.1% of tracks are real, and there's no way that you were able to examine every track, if only 1.1% are real, that means Sasquatch are real. So that's what I mean by the true believers. There are people that will look at, I always use the scales of justice, look at the evidence for and against,
and if it tips one way or the other, come up with their opinions. But there are what I call the true believers that maybe they've seen one and they believe it, whether or not they really saw one or it was in their mistaken identity or whatever. No matter what evidence you can use, like I just had somebody tell me that Patty was 97 years old when she was filmed by Patterson, and she's still doing well, and that
she said that in the press release, huh?
well, this guy lives in the UK, but he's able to.
Oh, from the UK.
He's able to talk to them because there's two types of Sasquatch. There's an alien type, and then there's another type on Earth that. Yeah, I can't do the mental gymnastics.
That's something else I wanted to talk about. We never even had a chance to get into the woohoo section, but
do we have to?
No, we don't. But it makes for a good filler. But
I think we got enough to chat about besides bringing that into that, because that's what we're talking about. Is there the brain? Every brain on the planet has a primal executive functioning programming that is about belief. It needs to believe in something. And that's why people go into conspiracy thinking, especially during crisis, is because the brain's trying to give your body something to hold on to when things are not making sense. And so it's not not normal that people would not believe strange things. That's normal. The question is whether or not we can believe strange things, and then as new evidence comes along, we can survive the new data, which the evidence for that is true. Bill saying about we once believed in Santa Claus, we didn't die. Psychology didn't destroy our science, didn't destroy us, because we found out that, like my goddaughter says to me the other day, "Can I tell you a secret?" And she's 10. I said, "Yeah, sure. What's up, Winter?" She says, "Don't tell mommy this, but I know the tooth fairy doesn't exist." She didn't die by the revelation of, oh my God, when I was 8 and 7 and first all my life I believed in tooth fairies, and now I don't believe it. She never died. She's still standing there. She didn't die because she knows Santa Claus isn't real. She, she understands you move forward when you get the data, and it shores you up in reality. It doesn't make you more crazier.
You haven't talked to a lot of Sasquatch investigators, have you?
I have talked to too many. That's what brings me
I
to the
know.
topic.
9 out of 10 would fall on the floor like a quaking bowl of jelly, crying for their mama. Yeah. If you proved that the Bigfoot didn't exist. Yeah.
And so if you put in true data, true evidence, it shores you up. It helps you actually bear under the accusations from the people who know not what they're talking about. Because it doesn't affect you anymore in regards to, I know, and this is the thing, like with Joe, I think about this so much in the last year since the passing and stuff, is to me, it's such a disservice to sit there and listen to people who are BSers and what they're coming up with. It's just bullshit. And when I hear Joe's story, and I've always heard Joe's story's always been like, to the point when I said to him one time, and this was on his deathbed, did it look like a Neanderthal man to you? And he says, I don't know. It was just huge though, and it was broad, and he couldn't. And Joe knows that's kind of in his wheelhouse in regards to different types of early prime hominids and stuff. And then that's not my wheelhouse, there's nothing in him that I think to myself, if there's one thing besides tracks that make me more curious about truly figuring it out, is Joe's story. Now that's 1% of my experiences out of the 100% it could be, not including your guys' experiences. Most of the stuff I've come across has been garbage, and people not know what they're talking about, and people wanting it to be something so much, whatever the evidence is I'm talking about, that they projected onto Sasquatch instead of show me how you know it's of Sasquatch. Though that's the question, not whether you think it's that. How would you know? Well, because I came up with this hypothesis. Blah, 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 blah. Well, tell me your hypothesis, and they never tell you that, of course. Or if they do tell you, as soon as you ask them 3 levels lower than where they're at, they crumble. Their whole foundation has nothing to base it on. Like I don't know.
I, as a side note, I think that Joe's ashes are being spread in about a week from now or so, or they're having a memorial service. And yeah, I miss that guy.
Oh, yeah.
I do. I miss him, man.
Yeah, Molly posted a brutal video. It was a great video, but it's Joe singing. He's at a baseball game, I think, and he's singing really loud, and he's singing Neil Diamond. I can't remember what song it was, but he was I just thought, man, I miss that guy so much, and that's been hard too, because it would have been nice to be able to fly down there for his memorial and stuff.
Yeah.
But my levels the last 5 months have been just absolutely gone. Can do certain little things, and then I need to have a nap for the day. So
don't sweat the petty stuff, and don't
pet the sweaty stuff.
Pet the sweaty
sweat
stuff.
the petty stuff, and don't pet the sweaty stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's the thing is, we're talking about, if you're talking about something that is serious, that could be serious, and that's why science doesn't look at this issue, because if you look at it the way we've looked at it, and we've been in it, and we've been on the go of trying to figure it out, no wonder they would look at it. Why would they look at it? Like, why would you look at this? You're going to bump into so many, just nothing there to look at, even though they're saying, well, look, it's right there. What? Show me what you're looking at. Because I can't see what you're talking about. That doesn't look like that to me.
Yeah, see, that would get me intrigued. What Liam was pointing out just there, if one of these university-sponsored scientific expeditions who are going out, nothing to do with Sasquatch, they're doing a study on, tree fungus, or they're doing a study on the effects of the forest fires, or they're doing a study on bear hibernation habits. They come across something.
Yeah.
But that always seems to be found by people who had Sasquatch on the brain from the first minute. Yeah.
Well, I think what happened too is that used to be true, but now what's happened is you have people online catapulting the idea even more by putting into narrations of stories. Mm-hmm. Because everyone, no one wants to offend anybody, but no one wants to vet it to see whether there's a factual thing in it. And that was like one of my big eye openers that I knew a lot of us have walked into a nightmare, is that whole thing with Matt Moneymaker. To sit there and say these are the best Bigfoot Sasquatch in 2020 in North America, and it's by
did anyone from the BFRO even investigate that area?
Well, he did. He phoned. It was all a phone call. And
I meant physically.
It even says on his webpage, if it's a way up there kind of story, we put boots on the ground. No boots were ever put on the ground. He phoned them, and then he didn't protect the witnesses. That's what's really pissed me off about the whole thing. He went for the story. He didn't protect the witnesses at all. And one of the witnesses was a professional, and I just thought, man, every time people see that person, they're going to say, "Oh, that's that person I thought they saw a Sasquatch and it was a moose."
Mm-hmm.
So I was in close contact with Thomas at the time, because I said, I don't know what to do about this, because I don't want people to sit there and say, "Oh, she thought that was a Sasquatch when it was a moose." It's not her fault; it's his fault.
Yeah.
I told you, Leon, stick to your guns and just tell us what you found, and don't let them try to convince you to say something else. Just stick to the facts and tell us what you found. And you did. Well, that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that was the helpful part. So
yeah.
Before we go, make sure you mention about the Merritt Sasquatch Convention.
Oh, yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, we should this time next week at 1:00 have Sheldon Cuisinant's from Nicola Valley Bigfoot, and we'll be talking about, among other things, about his convention he's putting together in August. And tune in if you're going to be in the British Columbia area at that time, or whether you're just interested in what's going on in BC, tune into the show. And that'll only be a part of it, of course. Myself and Bill and Thomas and Leon went to the last one last May, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it June? Yeah, May.
May.
And
May 9th.
this one's going to be even bigger.
I was walking in May. I thought it was in June.
I think so too.
We're
June,
all old
yeah.
now. We're all right.
Yeah.
Every month.
Yeah.
Every month, yeah.
No, May last year was a lot drier and warmer than this one was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Sheldon will be on next week, and we'll be talking about his experiences and his podcast and this new shindig that he's going to be putting on in August. So it's going to be an informative topic for sure. Yeah.
And just a quick mention about science investigating. Remember, with scientists, they're like everybody else. They have to put food on the table and a roof over their head. So your average scientist, the research they're doing is because somebody's paying the bills for them to do it. And unless somebody's going to come forward to say to a university, we're going to give a grant for Sasquatch research or whatever, you're not going to get a university or anything involved in it, is because they need funding. So you can't blame scientists who are not being funded to do the work for not doing it.
Yeah, out of their own pocket. Yeah.
I mean, the guys like Dr. Bindernagel are few and far between, that are doing it on their spare time. If people really wanted to get science involved, they would have to come up with funding to do it. Or, like, I forget which one of you said, if somebody's doing a salmon project research and they come across a body or footprints or whatever that might spurn it. But as of right now, you got to put food on the table, and if nobody's paying for the research, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
And also, just a footnote to that too. We got the get together coming up in the first week of July, and I'm not sure how many are going to be there. I don't know if Nikki is still here or not, or whether she's gone, preparing for her own show. And but we got three lots ready for camping. And I believe there's about 10 people going so far. Will you be thinking about making it down, Leon?
Well, I'm working on it. That's why I was out in the bush yesterday, just to see what I can functionally do and not functionally do. I'm more worried about the nature call scenario. What happens in the middle of the night when I have a nature call? Do I just
They have outhouses. They have outhouses.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I can make it in the outhouses. Question.
The campsites are right near the water, tap water, and the outhouse and what have you. Yeah, I'm in sort of in the same boat as you with some problems I'm going through at the moment. I was going to bring a motorhome up there and park in one of the campsites. It's all booked and everything, and I don't know if I'll be able to. I mean, my wife can't come because she is highly allergic to mosquito bites, and this place is kind of famous for its mosquitoes. So, and I don't know if I'm in well enough condition to be there on my own for a few days. And
is it at Harrison, or where is it located? Where
yes, Sasquatch Provincial Park, just outside of Harrison.
Okay.
You're about a 20-minute drive into downtown Harrison. So, you're not far at all. And I don't know. It remains to be seen what's going to happen there, but it's going to be a good time. It'll be a good time to see our compatriots from El Paso and down in Washington. And Calgary,
Texas.
and
Texas.
I believe at the same time there's another shindig on the go in Alberta. Is there not, Thomas?
Yeah,
That's
they have a get together every year in Alberta, and I think it's going to be. I'm not sure, but when I went a couple years ago, they had it close to the Bighorn Dam area in Alberta. I'm not sure if they're going to be there again. I haven't heard too much about it or somewhere else, but yeah, it's going to be going around the same time, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, and Nikki says
I
now
thought
we
that
have
was in
4
August.
lots. So I was mistaken. Now there's 4 lots. So plenty of room. And there's a couple of local chaps we'd like to come over too to pay a visit, to get to know us and for us to get to know them. There's Renaissance Man and 1 or 2 others. And of course, it'll be good to see Brent. And yeah. So as long as
Leave your
it
guns
doesn't
at the
turn into
border.
another heat dome forest fire conditions that it usually does every summer.
That's looking okay so far.
Bring your fire extinguisher with you just in case.
Yeah, Sasquatch Provincial Park named so because of the history of that area. So,
is that not where John Kirk had his sighting, at the very entrance to the park?
yes, that was in 2017. Yes, it's also where the Richards had their encounter on the trail right in behind very close to where they're all going to be camped.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I was not aware of that fact.
Yep.
Okay. And they do have hiking trails there.
Yep.
They're well
where
maintained.
The Richards had their encounter. Yep.
Yeah. And it's a nice place. It's a nice place, that park. Definitely. If you're bringing a pet with you, be warned, it has to be on the leash all the time. That's why I'm not bringing my dog, because I refuse to subjugate her to that torture, being on a leash in a park for 2 or 3 days.
I planned on visiting because I just live a little ways down the road. I was planning on visiting on a daily and nightly basis, and what I'm still trying to figure out is, do I need to get a day pass for my vehicle and stuff to go visit there?
Now that's a tricky part that nobody seems to have looked into.
Yeah.
You know what? I've got an entire lot to myself thus far. I mean, if there's spillover for campers, they can share my lot as well. But I think as it's going now, Nikki says there's 4 camping areas, so you can park in mine next to the motorhome if you want. You know,
that's what I've told Thomas, is there's going to be room to park by the tents, because a bunch of the people that are coming in tents are only in one vehicle.
Yeah.
So you just park beside it. But again, and one of the things with pets, just remember that black bears are very common in the area. And then the last time I camped in that park, there was cougars in the area that they actually had the rangers come out and just tell everyone to make sure they didn't have any dogs outside or that, because of the cougars and little kids. And then Nikki was asking about, is there any place off grid? Nikki, we got tens of thousands of acres of crown land just that surround that park. Yeah. There's all sorts of areas that Thomas and I and others have camped.
Those hiking trails are quite extensive. They go a good ways.
Yeah, there's some good maps that Brent can look at that can, if he wants to pick somewhere where nobody else is going to be and nobody knows about, that he could go, that are within 10-15 minutes of Sasquatch Park.
And I don't think you need to worry about any false reports coming back. Like Pat from Squatch Talk said, don't want any reports about Sasquatch sounds or anything else like that. I said, don't worry, you won't hear any unless it actually happens. So yeah, that should be a good time by all. Anyway, laddies, it's almost 2 hours going to the top of the hour now. I guess people are going to be shuffling off soon to see what Nikki is up to. She's got a show coming up in an hour or so, a couple of hours maybe. I don't know what the timeline is in El Paso, but I think it's a 1 hour difference. And I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out today. God willing, we'll do it again the same time next week. Where, like I said, there will be a guest. And so play nice. And
well, I know next week I won't be able to do it because it's Father's Day, and I'll be at my fault with my father.
Well, if it's Father's Day here, that means up in Nicola Valley it will also be Father's Day. So maybe I'll have to rearrange an appointment with Sheldon. So either way, whatever, there'll be something going on. Yeah. And hey, guys, thank you very much. Our very first live and in color stream. And I think it was quite enjoyable. It was quite a lot of fun.
And thank you for everybody that joined and those that made comments as well. We appreciate it.
Especially. And let other people know, too, let them know that the Bookwas crew is also have a live show now if they care to drop by on a Sunday and partake of it. We'd love to have you. And thank you for coming out today, too. Thomas, man, a few words for the past few minutes.
Just great to be going live with you guys, and for everyone out there, stick to the facts and never deviate from the facts.
Leon, it's good to see you on the air once again, up and around, man.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing a 2-hour documentary for TELUS on Bigfoot. And I haven't got back to them. They actually got back to me apologizing for being 2 months behind production. And I thought, I haven't even thought about you guys, so that's fine with me. But you're welcome. It's good to kind of be on site, even though it's a slow trudge for me for sure. But doing
and Bill, everybody loves Bill, our favorite in-house skeptic. We're all skeptics, but Bill takes it to a special art form. He's indispensable, Bill. And the fact that he's celebrating Father's Day and he might not be here next Saturday, well, that causes a lot of pain in the coronary area. And
Sunday,
but we'll muddle through somehow. That's it, guys.
I'm very fortunate. Both my parents are still alive, and I get to celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day with them. So I consider myself very fortunate for that.
Indeed you are. My parents have been gone for many years. Many years. And there's something special there. And anyway, we had a good run at it for 4 guys who didn't know what the hell they were doing. I think we produced an okay show today. So imagine what we can do if we knew what the hell we were doing. Watch out. Lots of fun to come in the future. Everybody, have a good night. We're out of here.
All right.